George Smith's Honeymoon tragedy, a tale of love, lies, and the lost truth at sea. A loving husband, a mysterious death, and questions that still haunt two nations. This is the puzzling story of Mario Biondo, a life filled with dreams, a tragic ending, and a mystery that refuses to be solved. What really happened on that quiet night in Madrid? Was it a tragic accident, a carefully staged crime, or something else entirely? Stick around as we uncover the shocking twists and unanswered questions behind this decade-long search for truth. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that leave you on the edge of your seat. Picture this. A warm summer breeze whispers across the Mediterranean in 2005, carrying with it a tale that would soon grip the world's attention. Aboard the majestic Royal Caribbean cruise ship, newlyweds George and Jennifer Smith were living what seemed like a fairy tale. Their love story, fresh and vibrant, was meant to be just beginning. Instead, it would become one of the most mysterious disappearances in modern maritime history. Hello, I'm Don, and I'm here to share a story that still sends chills down the spines of those who remember it. This isn't just another missing persons case. It's a tale that reminds us how quickly joy can turn to sorrow, and how the vast ocean keeps secrets that may never surface. Welcome to A Deadly Wedding Trip, the Smith family case. George Smith wasn't just another face in the crowd of Greenwich, Connecticut. He was the kind of son every parent dreams of having, loyal, hardworking, and deeply rooted in family values. The family liquor store wasn't just a business to him, it was a symbol of his parents' American dream, built brick by brick with years of dedication. After getting his business degree from Babson College and spending time in Boston's bustling corporate world, George made a choice that spoke volumes about his character. He returned home to help his parents secure their legacy. Then there was Jennifer Hagel, a breath of fresh air in the form of an elementary school teacher. Her students adored her, and anyone who met her couldn't help but be drawn to her infectious enthusiasm for life. She wasn't just beautiful. She was the kind of person who made others want to be better versions of themselves. Her intelligence matched her compassion, making her the perfect match for the family-oriented George. When these two souls found each other, it was like watching two puzzle pieces click into place. Their wedding at Castle Hill Inn in Newport, Rhode Island in June 2005 wasn't just a ceremony. It was a celebration of perfect timing, shared dreams, and what everyone thought would be a lifetime of love. The historic castle setting with its panoramic ocean views seemed to echo the grandeur of their hopes for the future. Little did anyone know that this beautiful beginning would soon become the first chapter of one of the most baffling mysteries of the 21st century. A mystery that still keeps investigators awake at night and leaves families searching for answers that the vast, silent sea refuses to reveal. The Mediterranean sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and pink as George and Jennifer Smith embarked on what seemed like a perfect honeymoon, a 12-day cruise through waters that had witnessed thousands of love stories throughout history. Their ship, a floating palace of luxury and romance, would carry them from the vibrant streets of Barcelona to the ancient shores of Greece and Italy. Every port promised a new chapter in their story, but destiny had other plans. Like the deceptively calm waters they sailed through, their journey held depths no one could have foreseen. This wasn't just going to be their first adventure as husband and wife. It would become a maritime mystery that would haunt the cruise industry for years to come. Mykonos, with its whitewashed buildings and azure waters, became their favorite stop. Here, they wandered hand in hand through narrow streets where bougainvillea spilled over ancient walls, and shared intimate meals in tavernas where the sound of bouzouki music mixed with the gentle lapping of waves. They were creating the kind of memories meant to last a lifetime, if only fate had allowed. Life aboard the ship seemed equally enchanting. George and Jennifer's natural charm attracted others like moths to a flame, and soon they found themselves part of an unlikely group of friends. There was Josh Askin, a 20-year-old California native whose quick wit made him instantly likable, and three Russian-American men, Greg and Zach Rosenberg and Rostislav Rusty Kaufman. The group's dynamic energy added an extra spark to their voyage. July 4th, 2005, started like a postcard come to life. The couple spent their day exploring Mykonos' sun-drenched pathways, sampling local delicacies, and soaking in the island's timeless beauty. As night fell and Independence Day celebrations began aboard the ship, their group gravitated toward the casino, a glittering playground where the champagne flowed as freely as the conversation. The casino's atmosphere was electric that night. George and Josh found their spot at the craps table, their excitement rising and falling with each roll of the dice. Meanwhile, Jennifer commanded attention at the poker table, her competitive spirit and engaging personality making her the life of the game. Money came and went. Witnesses would later recall they lost a considerable sum, but the laughter never stopped. What no one realized was that these moments of joy and celebration were being captured by the ship's security cameras, becoming crucial pieces of evidence in a mystery that was about to unfold. The carefree gambling, the friendly banter, the casual drinks, all would soon be scrutinized by investigators trying to piece together the events of that fateful night. The playful casino atmosphere began to darken as the night wore on. At 2:30 a.m., when the casino finally closed its doors, security cameras captured what would become the last confirmed sighting of George Smith alive. The footage shows him swaying but managing to walk independently, a mundane moment that would soon become a crucial piece of evidence in a baffling investigation. The next few hours remained shrouded in contradiction and mystery. Some witnesses placed George returning to his cabin with his new friends, while others insisted he remained behind. These conflicting accounts would later become a major hurdle for investigators, with each version painting a different picture of George's final hours. Meanwhile, Jennifer's night took its own troubling turn. Security footage and witness accounts describe her stumbling through the ship's corridors, clearly intoxicated and far from her cabin. Ship staff eventually found her in a state of confusion, requiring their help to make it back to her room. This separation from her husband, seemingly innocent at the time, would later haunt the investigation. The Mediterranean night rolled on, the massive cruise ship cutting through dark waters under a star-filled sky. Most passengers slept peacefully, unaware that somewhere above them, a tragedy was unfolding in the shadows. The ship's gentle motion and the hum of its engines masked whatever transpired in those crucial hours before dawn. The morning of July 5, 2005 brought a discovery that would shatter the cruise's tranquil facade. Emily Rausch, a 16-year-old passenger, peered out her window for what she thought would be a peaceful morning view. Instead, her eyes fell upon something that would haunt her forever: stark red streaks marring the white surface of a lifeboat canopy below Deck 7. The blood trail led ominously toward the edge, telling a silent story of someone's tragic fall into the dark waters below. The ship erupted into chaos as word spread. George Smith, the charismatic newlywed who had been the life of the party just hours before, was missing. The evidence left behind spoke of violence rather than accident. Cabin 9062, the honeymoon suite he shared with Jennifer, became a crime scene. Blood-stained sheets and towels suggested a struggle. A trail of blood droplets led investigators to the balcony, where smudged fingerprints on the railing stood as silent witnesses to whatever happened in those early morning hours. But the most chilling detail, one that would later become crucial to the investigation, was what other passengers had heard. Several reported a loud thud against the side of the ship around 4:30 a.m., a sound that, in hindsight, might have been the moment George Smith's life came to its tragic end. The crime scene in cabin 9062 told a story that sent chills down investigators' spines. That chair by the balcony, deliberately positioned or hastily moved during a struggle, became a haunting detail that would perplex investigators for years. Was it simply left there after someone enjoyed the view? Or did it represent something more sinister? The placement seemed too precise to be coincidental. Meanwhile, Jennifer Hagel's discovery at the ship's spa created a jarring contrast to the unfolding chaos. There she was, receiving a scheduled massage while her husband's disappearance was turning the ship upside down. Her state of confusion and apparent intoxication only added to the mystery. When questioned, her answer was simple yet troubling. She had no idea where George was. But the ship held its own memories of Jennifer's movements that night. Security footage and witness accounts painted a picture of her stumbling through corridors so intoxicated she could barely stand. Ship staff had found her collapsed in a hallway, sleeping in an unlikely spot far from her cabin. When they finally managed to get her back to the stateroom, they noticed something odd. Those tightly drawn balcony curtains, as if someone had been trying to hide something behind them. Jennifer's calm demeanor in the face of George's disappearance puzzled investigators. Was it shock? The lingering effects of alcohol, or something else entirely? The question would haunt the investigation for years to come. As news of George's disappearance spread through the ship, panic rippled through the passengers. What had started as a luxury cruise had transformed into a floating crime scene. Whispered conversations in corridors and nervous glances between strangers replaced the previous day's carefree atmosphere. When the ship docked in Turkey, local authorities were met with a complex web of contradictions. The investigation quickly focused on Jennifer and the group of young men who had spent that fateful night with George. Josh Askin, charming and articulate, along with the three Russian-American friends, Greg and Zach Rosenberg and Rostislav Kaufman, found themselves at the center of a growing storm. Their stories didn't quite add up. Each version had subtle differences, crucial details that changed with each telling. Why couldn't they agree on when they'd last seen George? Why did their accounts of his state of mind differ so dramatically? And most importantly, why did some of them appear nervous during questioning? Most troubling was a detail that emerged later. Security cameras had captured these young men escorting an extremely intoxicated George back to his cabin. What happened after they entered that room would become one of the investigation's most crucial questions. The investigation zeroed in on the conflicting accounts of that fateful night. Josh Askin and his friends insisted they'd done the right thing, helping an intoxicated George back to his cabin around 3 a.m. and tucking him safely into bed. But their story began to unravel under scrutiny. Josh's claim about Jennifer leaving with another man fell apart when security footage revealed her stumbling through the corridors alone, adding another layer of suspicion to their already questionable testimony. Then came the video, a chilling piece of evidence that would haunt the investigation for years. The footage showed the young men making what they claimed was just a tasteless joke about teaching someone to paraglide without a parachute. The timing of this joke, so close to George's disappearance, sent shivers down investigators' spines. Was it truly just gallows humor, or something more sinister? The crime scene itself refused to support any simple explanation. Blood patterns in the cabin and on the lifeboat canopy below told a story of violence. Earlier that evening, passengers had overheard George and Jennifer discussing substantial amounts of money. Whether wedding gifts or casino winnings remained unclear. George's expensive Breitling watch and Jennifer's valuable engagement ring presented possible motives for robbery. But if theft was the motive, why was the scene so violent? That chair by the balcony became a focal point of speculation. Its position seemed deliberate, almost staged. Had George sat there voluntarily for some fresh air, or had something more sinister occurred? Each theory opened new possibilities. Each possibility led to more questions. As Turkish authorities dug deeper, they faced a frustrating maze of contradictions. Jennifer claimed alcohol-induced memory loss, the young men couldn't keep their stories straight, and the physical evidence suggested scenarios that no one was willing to confirm. It was becoming clear that someone aboard that ship knew exactly what happened to George Smith, and they weren't talking. For the Smith family, particularly George's parents and his sister Bree, the nightmare was just beginning. Their world stopped turning the moment they received that devastating phone call. But grief quickly transformed into determination. They weren't just mourning a son and brother. They were launching a crusade for truth. Their first battle was with Royal Caribbean itself. The family demanded complete transparency, fighting for access to every security tape, every witness statement, every piece of evidence that might help solve the mystery of George's disappearance. When official channels seemed to move too slowly, they took action, offering a $100,000 reward for information. It wasn't just about money, it was a message to anyone who might know something. The Smith family wouldn't rest until they uncovered the truth. The Smith family's battle for truth took on two fronts. First, they launched a public campaign against Royal Caribbean, accusing the cruise line of choosing corporate interests over justice. Their call for a boycott wasn't just about punishment, it was a desperate attempt to force transparency from a company they believed was hiding crucial evidence. Their second strategy proved more scientific. Enter Dr. Henry Lee, a legendary forensic expert known for cracking impossible cases. His findings shattered the accident theory. The balcony railing stood 4.5 feet high, too tall for someone to accidentally fall over, even while intoxicated. The chair's position, blood spatter patterns, and other evidence pointed to a more sinister scenario. Someone else had to be involved. But Royal Caribbean's resistance proved frustrating. The cruise line blocked certain forensic tests, citing operational concerns. Crime scene photos disappeared. Witness statements seemed incomplete. Each roadblock only fueled the family's suspicion that the company was protecting something or someone. The FBI's involvement brought new hope, but also deeper mysteries. Their investigation focused heavily on George's last known companions. Josh Askin's failed polygraph test raised red flags. When asked direct questions about George's disappearance, his hands trembled, his voice wavered, and the machine detected clear signs of deception. Even more telling was the behavior of the Russian-American trio, Greg, Zach, and Rostislav. Their decision to invoke the Fifth Amendment spoke volumes. Why refuse to answer if they had nothing to hide? Their stories about that night kept changing. First, they claimed they left George's cabin immediately, then admitted staying longer, then couldn't agree on what time they actually left. The investigation revealed another troubling detail. Security cameras caught the group returning to their cabins that night, but their clothing appeared different from what they'd been wearing earlier. This unexplained wardrobe change added another layer of suspicion to their already questionable accounts. For the Smith family, each revelation brought both hope and heartbreak. Their son's case had become a maze of half-truths, conflicting testimonies, and blocked paths, but they refused to give up. George's sister Bree became particularly vocal, appearing on national television to keep her brother's story alive. Their message was clear. Someone knew what happened that night, and the Smith family would never stop until that someone came forward. Time can heal many wounds, but some mysteries leave scars that never fade. The disappearance of George Smith became one of those cases, a puzzle where the missing pieces seemed to mock every attempt at resolution. After years of searching for answers, the investigation reached a conclusion that felt more like surrender than closure. The FBI's 2012 decision to close the case and rule George's death an accident sent shockwaves through everyone involved. 7 years of intense investigation, thousands of hours of forensic work, countless interviews, all to end with a ruling that seemed to ignore the mounting evidence of foul play, the blood evidence, the suspicious behavior of the young men, the questionable timeline. None of it seemed to matter in the end. For the Smith family, this wasn't just a legal defeat, it was a betrayal of George's memory. Every drop of blood in that cabin, every inconsistent statement from Josh Askin and his friends, every blocked attempt at further investigation by Royal Caribbean, all pointed to something far more sinister than a simple accident. The family couldn't accept that their son, who had everything to live for, had simply fallen overboard. Dr. Henry Lee's forensic findings painted a compelling picture of foul play. The blood spatter pattern suggested a struggle. The position of furniture indicated a confrontation. Yet when he requested access to conduct more thorough testing, doors kept closing. Royal Caribbean's resistance to further investigation only deepened the family's suspicions that the cruise line was protecting itself at the expense of truth. Then came what felt like the final betrayal. Jennifer Hagel, once united with the Smiths in their quest for justice, made a decision that would forever change her relationship with her late husband's family. Her 2006 settlement with Royal Caribbean, a $1 million agreement to drop all legal claims, struck the Smith family like a physical blow. While Jennifer defended her choice as a necessary step toward healing, citing advice from both legal counsel and FBI investigators, the Smiths saw it differently. To them, she had traded the truth about their son's death for a check. This settlement created a permanent rift between Jennifer and the Smiths. As she moved forward with her life, even eventually remarrying, George's family remained trapped in their quest for answers. The contrast between Jennifer's ability to move on and their inability to let go became a source of deep pain and resentment. Jennifer Hagel's path forward painted a stark contrast to the Smith family's ongoing struggle. While she rebuilt her life, remarrying, starting a family, and channeling her grief into charitable work in George's name, the Smiths remained trapped in an endless cycle of questions and frustration. Their rewards for information went unclaimed. Their media appearances brought sympathy, but no answers. The truth they sought remained tantalizingly out of reach. The FBI's ruling of tragic accident stands as the official verdict, but for many who know the case intimately, it feels like a convenient conclusion rather than a satisfying truth. The blood evidence, the suspicious video, the failed polygraph, the Fifth Amendment pleas, all these pieces still refuse to fit into the simple puzzle of an accident. But George Smith's story transcends personal tragedy. It exposes a troubling reality about maritime law and justice. Cruise ships, these floating cities of leisure, operate in a gray zone of international jurisdiction. When crimes occur at sea, investigations face unique challenges. Evidence literally floats away. Witnesses scatter across the globe. Multiple countries claim or refuse jurisdiction. Royal Caribbean's handling of George's case highlighted a systemic problem in the cruise industry. Corporate reputation often takes precedence over transparency. Crucial evidence disappears in the name of operational necessity. Investigation protocols vary wildly depending on where the ship is when tragedy strikes. The Smith family's ordeal revealed how these gaps in maritime law can leave other families equally vulnerable to unresolved tragedy. Today, George's case serves as a catalyst for change. It sparked discussions about cruise ship safety, led to calls for stricter regulations, and highlighted the need for standardized protocols in maritime investigations. Yet, for all this progress, one fact remains heartbreakingly clear. Somewhere between the glittering waters of the Mediterranean and the cold reality of maritime law, the full truth about George Smith's fate slipped away. This isn't just another unsolved mystery. It's a stark reminder of how quickly joy can turn to tragedy, how truth can vanish like a ship in the night, and how some questions may never find their answers. George Smith stepped onto that cruise ship as a newlywed, full of dreams for the future. He left it in circumstances that still haunt his loved ones and puzzle investigators to this day. So we close this chapter of George's story, but like all great mysteries, it leaves us with more questions than answers. What secrets do those Mediterranean waters still hold? What truths lie buried in the memories of those who last saw George alive? And will his family ever find the closure they so desperately seek? Thank you for joining me on this journey through one of the most perplexing maritime mysteries of our time. Remember, every unsolved case is more than just a story. It's a family's ongoing search for truth, a community's quest for justice, and a reminder that sometimes the most haunting mysteries are the ones that touch our hearts the most deeply.